Good evening, Eleanor.
Evening.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chair. Can I confirm that the meeting is now live to the public and also being recorded?
Thank you very much, Sue. And good evening and welcome to the meeting of East Devon District Council on Tuesday, the 27th of July, 2021. I'm your Chair, Councillor Ian Thomas. Based on the decision of our extraordinary general meeting on the 26th of July, I'd like to remind both members and public attending or watching that this council has delegated much of its decision-taking power to our senior officers. This is for a short period of time only and due to concerns relating to COVID risk. Consequently, this meeting is held on a consultative basis only. That said, we will continue to adhere as closely as possible to the procedural rules detailed in our Constitution. However, where this meeting would normally have decided a matter, it will now make a recommendation to the senior officer. The officer will then take that recommendation into account when making their decision. All participants this evening are taking part remotely. The meeting can be viewed live online and will be recorded. Please bear this in mind throughout the meeting. May I also remind colleagues as usual to be careful with their language and that the code of conduct applies throughout our meeting. We reserve the right to remove or disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or a power supply cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we're not able to reconnect after 15 minutes, this meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for further details. Could colleagues please also ensure your microphone is muted when you're not speaking? This will help avoid any disturbance from background noise. Could you also keep your points short and not interrupt when someone else is speaking? Should you wish to comment at any point, please raise your electronic blue hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public can view the agenda by visiting our website. We're now about to start the meeting by doing a roll call of all members here present. Can you please now unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name called, please confirm by saying present. When you've confirmed you are present, please mute your microphone again. Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Yes, present.
Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Bickley.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Blakey.
Present.
Councillor Bloxham.
Present.
Councillor Bonetta, excuse me.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Councillor Bruce.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Cahill.
Present, and can I give apologies, Sue? No video for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Present.
Councillor Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Chubb.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Desarum.
Present, thank you very much, Sue.
Councillor Faithful.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present.
Councillor Hawkins.
Present.
Councillor Haywood.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Hookway.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Howe. Okay. Councillor Hughes.
Present.
Councillor Ingham.
Present.
Councillor Jackson.
She's just trying to get in, Sue.
Okey-doke. I'll ask again. Councillor Jarvis.
Present, Sue, thank you.
Councillor Johns.
Present, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Young.
Present.
Councillor Key,
Present.
Councillor King,
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence,
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Ledger,
Present. Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Loudon.
Evening, Sue. Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller,
Present, thank you.
Councillor Moulding,
Present.
Councillor Parr, I'm sure I have seen Councillor Parr. Okay, I'll come back to ones I haven't heard from. Councillor Pepper.
Present. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you. Councillor Ranger. Okay. Councillor Rickson,
Present, thank you.
Councillor Rowland,
Present.
Councillor Rylands,
Present.
Councillor Skinner,
Present.
Councillor Thomas,
Present.
Councillor Twiss,
Present, Sue.
Councillor Wibley.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward,
Present. Thank you.
Councillor Bragg,
Present.
Councillor Chris Wright. Okay. Councillor Tom Wright.
Present, Sue, but unfortunately distanced from you and my colleagues.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if I can just double check those I didn't get a response from, please. Councillor Armstrong. Okay. Councillor Howe. Councillor Jackson. Oh, I think Councillor Jackson.
Just arriving.
Okay. Councillor Parr.
Present, thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Chris Wright. Okay. Can I just ask, Councillor Jackson, have you managed to get in? I can
I'm
see that.
present, thank you, Sue.
Lovely. Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue. Before I start, well, I've confirmed firstly that the meeting is quorate, but before I move to item 1, I'd just like to briefly thank Councillor Sam Hawkins for stepping in at the last minute to take over the role of Vice Chair. Unfortunately, Councillor Ranger is not able to attend this evening. She may well get here later on, but she's unfortunately not available. So thank you very much, Councillor Hawkins, and I trust that's acceptable to all colleagues. Agenda item 1 is public speaking. We've got 3 members of the public who have actually registered to speak, and I'd like to invite them into the meeting. Do you know whether, are they intending, there's a question about whether they were going to ask for a statement to be read, Sue, or is that?
I think Mr. Haggerty, as the first speaker, is present and ready to speak, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Haggerty, could I hear from you now, please?
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay. My question to the council this evening is, will East Devon Council follow Seaton in trying to achieve coach friendly to enhance business? This will be East Devon to achieve coach friendly status and also East Devon to achieve coach attraction status. The CPT, which is the Coach Federation of Passenger Transport, have operated the coach friendly status scheme since 2003. The scheme takes 2 forms: cities, towns and villages as a whole, and attractions in their own rights, and working the 2 together. The scheme works together with tourism partnerships, local government representatives and the private sector to enhance facilities to attract international tourism. In turn, this generates millions of pounds of revenue to local businesses and councils in the whole of the East Devon area. The coach-friendly scheme looks at coach parking, preferably free, coach signage, sign set down and pick-up points and facilities, driver facilities and incentives, facilities for the coaches like toilet drops, which can be tied to coach operators in the area. In terms of passengers, they look to have keen incentives and generate custom by way of voucher schemes or group discounts. This will include toilet facilities for passengers and also facilities for those that are less mobile. The scheme has been very successful here in the southwest in other areas, and after a break during the pandemic, the scheme has now just restarted, with Marlborough in Wiltshire being awarded on the 21st of June 2021. The Coach Friendly Award Scheme is organised in such a way it gives maximum publicity worldwide. The process starts with an inspection and report from CPT to identify what may need to be improved to gain an award. Following an audit, and when successful, the award will be achieved. The town or attraction has the right then to use the Coach Friendly logo and all the publicity and marketing materials which attract people from worldwide. Seaton is already an advanced stage of gaining the accreditation. Coaches also enhance not just the passengers, but enhance all forms of tourism via the trains and cars and families alike.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, thank you. The financial impact launching Coach Friendly is a minimal, because most of the things that are required are already in situ and not used. Just imagine if East Devon competed as one Coach Friendly region: Sidmouth, Exmouth, Budleigh, Salterton, Bere, Seaton, Axminster, Honiton, Ottery, St Mary's, and others if they wish to join. Each town and parish must work together to achieve the Coach Friendly status.
3
This would
minutes.
increase. Is that it? Thank you.
Sorry you cut off quite so sharply, Mr. Hegarty, but thank you very much for your contribution. You'll now be put back into the waiting room, and you're welcome to view the meeting live on the Council's YouTube page. My apologies.
Sorry, he ought to be allowed to have his answer, or at least an indication of what the Council intends to do before he's removed from the meeting.
Right, my apologies. Is that Councillor Wright seeking to speak? Does that relate to this matter?
Yes, Chairman, it does. I'm just wondering, bearing in mind what this council is trying to go through, how much toilet provision features in the being a coach-friendly destination. Thank you.
Well, I think it's specifically, Councillor Mr. Haggerty, what I'd like to do is I'd arrange for the appropriate portfolio holder to get back in touch with you to pick up your questions and comments, and then we'll take it from there. But thank you very much in the interim for your time, and my apologies for the slight mix-up.
No problem.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I did ask a question of the person who was speaking to us, and surely he's able to answer how much toilet provision impacts on the friendliness and the desirability of coach operators to come to our locations. Thank you.
Yeah, well, as you know, Councillor Wright, it isn't normally a question and answer session with members of the public in this 15-minute session. But on the other hand, if Mr. Haggerty is able to answer quickly, I'll happily take that.
Yes, I can, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public toilets in each of the areas, and also the businesses that are attracting facilities for the passengers in each of the visiting areas would have toilet facilities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We have 2 more speakers registered, but there's a possibility, I understand, they may wish to speak on the motion at item 13 rather than at this time. Can you shed any light, Sue, please?
Have we got Mr. Dolphin with us? I think, yeah.
No, I don't think we have.
Okay.
No,
Mr. Sherman's here.
Mr. Sherman.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Very well, thank you.
Lovely. Would you like to speak now, or would you like to save your contribution till item 13, the motion on trees? Because I understand it relates to that.
Whichever you feel is most appropriate. I'm happy to speak now or wait.
Your choice. If you speak now, then
Okay.
It gives you choice. Okay?
Okay, let's do it now. But please forgive me, I'm not used to reading out loud to people, so I'll probably stumble.
No, don't worry, neither am I.
Good. Okay, so shall I make a start?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councillors and support staff for allowing me to speak this evening. It's on the subject of West Hill trees and wider issue. We all know that the world is changing. It's changing in ways that we've never seen before, with violent storms of such destructive force that whole communities lose homes, possessions and lives. We all throw up our hands in horror when we hear about global warming and the effect it has on our environment, yet how many of us actually makes changes to the way we live? How many of us support positive action for the environment, but only when it doesn't impact our holiday, building project or choice of Sunday lunch? Even in West Hill, the trees are coming down and the wildlife is being marginalised. Natural hedging and trees that once allowed free access to the higher order of wildlife is now being replaced by lifeless, sterile fencing. This fencing prevents deers, foxes, badgers, and other garden visitors from accessing the resources they need and once had free access to. And if you ask me how much of a problem this all is, let me tell you that in one garden alone, 21 healthy trees were taken out in a single week just to help the sale of that property. In the adjoining garden, new owners have taken out at least 9 fully established trees, and only to replace their naturally created boundary with fixed fencing that reaches a height of well over 6 feet and is impenetrable to wildlife. In all this, though, there is an opportunity. West Hill holds a tiny fragment of the world's overall flora and fauna, yet it's not insignificant. Indeed, handled correctly, it could be big enough to put the whole of Devon on the political and ecological map. By building formal legislation that offers the same protection to every tree in this area, we can show the world that we're not the kind of people who are prepared to sit back and just let global warming happen. We're not the kind of people that will push wildlife to the edge of our towns and villages and to the very precipice of extinction. We are, however, the people that understand, legislate, educate, and move our environment to the top of the agenda.
30 seconds remaining.
Not to the top of the woodpile, thank you. But with so much destruction happening all around the Greater West Hill area, we must act now. To delay is to be part of the problem. To act swiftly will help us all be part of the solution and a beacon of hope for the whole world to follow. Make no mistake, this is an opportunity to show real and resounding leadership. There will be challenges and disdain, there will be confrontation that will test our resolve. But no mountain worth climbing is easily climbed. We just need to take the first step.
3 minutes.
So, sorry, was that?
No, that's super. For somebody nervous, that sounded pretty eloquent to me, Mr. Sherman. So well done.
That's very kind. Thank you.
What I think, if the portfolio holder, Councillor Young, who's looking down, would like to make a quick comment, because I think it is a priority of our council, as you know, and as you know, there's a motion coming later on in the evening. But Councillor Young, would you like to make a quick response?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for explaining your concerns of West Hill. I too share a lot of the same views that you do, and now I'll be working with your district councillor and the parish councillors to see what we can do for West Hill. But on top of that, we need to look at the whole East Devon and work towards a tree policy that is better than any other district in the country, I promise you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Young. And Mr. Sherman, thank you very much again. You'll be returned to the waiting room now, but you can watch the rest of the meeting on YouTube if you'd like.
That's very kind, thank you.
And thank you very much for coming. Agenda item 2 are the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 25th of May 2021. Anybody with any comments on these minutes, could you please raise your electronic hand?
Chair, can I just interrupt you? Apologies. We do have a statement from the third speaker, Mr. Dolphin, which we could read out before you progress. Would you be happy for us to do that, or do you want to move on?
Well, I think let's move on, and on the basis it's a statement, then we can take that at the time of the motion 13, if we could, on item 13.
Okay.
So if any blue hands, anybody, any comments on the minutes from the annual council, could you please raise your hands now? I'm not seeing any hands, so could I please invite members to vote in favour or against recommending approval of the minutes? Could we, all those 4, please? Could you indicate with the green tick? You got that, Sue?
Yes, for the benefit of those watching at home, we have 36 votes in favour.
Can anybody opposed please hit your red cross? I'm not seeing any opposed or abstentions with your blue.
Councillor Miller's got his hand up. I don't know whether that was to
Yeah, I
speak.
have noted it. I'll come to it when I finish. We're halfway through the vote.
It's to
Anyway.
abstain, Chair. I wasn't at the annual meeting, so I couldn't possibly vote for them. And there's no recording.
And one
of the meeting.
abstention. Okay, well, on that basis, the recommendation is for us to approve. Item 3 are apologies. I have currently got apologies from Councillor Alan Dent, Councillor Kathy Gardner, Councillor Marcus Hartnell, Councillor Dawn Manley, Councillor Jeff Pratt, Councillor Brenda Taylor, Councillor Chris Wright, and from Honorary Alderman Trevor Cope and Jim Knight. Have there been any other apologies given, please?
Yes, Councillor Barrow, Councillor Ian Hall, and Councillor Tony McCollum.
Thank you very much. Are there any more from members in the room this evening? No? Okay. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? If during the meeting you wish to make a declaration, please remember to state your declaration itself, including which agenda item it relates to, and if it's a personal or prejudicial declaration, and what exactly the interest is.
No, I did get blood.
Pardon? Didn't catch that. So no declarations of interest? Okay, on to agenda item 5.
Councillor Miller's got his hand up again.
Sorry, I thought it was a residual hand, Paul.
No.
Apologies.
Sorry, Chair. I have to declare an interest in the item for LED funding, being a fully paid up member of Leisure East Devon. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Agenda item 5, matters of urgency. There are no matters of urgency identified. Agenda item 6, announcements from the chair and or the leader. I've got a couple. Firstly, I'd like to both announce and welcome the election of Councillor Jake Burnetta as East Devon District Councillor and Ward Member for Honiton St Michael's. Welcome, Jake. And also Councillor Alistair Bruce as East Devon Councillor and Ward Councillor for Fennyton, and both of whom were elected at the recent by-elections on the 8th of July. Welcome to you both. I hope you have an enjoyable and fulfilling time with us. Additional items I'd like to bring forward there is firstly, I've thanked Councillor Hawking for taking over the Vice Chair, but what I'd also like to do is, following again the resolution last evening, we've been working with senior officers today, and as members will know, there are a large number of meetings for work groups that have simply not happened because of our inability to meet face to face, as was required. Now, what I'm pleased to announce is that the aim now is to move back to a full programme of council meetings. So those meetings that have not been previously held will be worked back into the programme. So thank you very much for officers for that, and it's a great step forward. And I think actually the leader had a comment he wanted to make as well.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Just to echo your welcome to the 2 new councillors, and to announce that Councillor Jake Burnetta will now be the Assistant Portfolio Holder to Councillor Hookway at Culture, Leisure, Tourism and Sport. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Arnott. On to agenda item 7, confidential and exempt items. No items have been recommended by officers to be dealt with as confidential or exempt. Agenda item 8, to answer questions asked by members of the council pursuant to procedure rules 9.2 and 9.5. 4 questions were received, a full house for Councillor Miller, and all have been responded to in writing and published prior to the meeting. And I'm grateful for Councillor Miller for confirming to me in advance that he's perfectly satisfied with the answers he's received to those questions. Thank you very much for that. On to agenda item 9. What we have here are the reports from Cabinet and Council's committees and questions on those reports. The recommendations from each of the committees are actually on page 38 under agenda item 9, if members want to refer to them in the original papers. So what I would like to do, can I receive the meetings of the following committees and invite members to vote in favour or against recommending approval? The first one is to the leader. Minutes of Cabinet virtually held on the 5th of May, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm pleased to present the minutes to Council of the said minutes, minute numbers 382 to 400.
Are any of these called, Henry, or not? No, I don't think they are. They
No,
not this one?
none of them are called.
Okay, so all those in favour, please. Can you raise your tick your tick or vote against with a cross or abstain with the raised hand? Thank you very much.
Okay, Chair, I have 32 votes in favour, votes, green ticks in favour, and 2 abstentions. I've got 2 yellow hands, which I'm assuming means abstentions.
Yes, right. Thank you very much. Those are recommended for approval. And then back to the leader again.
Thank you very much again, Chair. And I forgot to add my thanks, in addition to yours, to Councillor Miller, that he was satisfied with the written responses. Thank you, Councillor Miller. So the second set of Cabinet minutes are those from the 12th of May, 2021, minute numbers 401 to 413.
Now, I believe there is a called minute there at 405. Which has been called by Councillor Bonetta and Councillor Miller. Councillor Bonetta, would you like to speak first, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm proud to be sat here today as the newest member of EDDC, as well as the youngest and the first Labour Party councillor in approximately 20 years. It is imperative to me, through the conversations I had on the doorsteps of Honiton St Michael's, that we serve our communities with transparency, with integrity and leadership, which is exactly what I intend to do as a district councillor sat here today. The key thing that we must do as councillors is represent our ward members and residents of East Devon as a whole, equally and wholly. That is our role as councillors, and that is what we are here to do. As part of this, we must listen to our residents and raise questions when they arise. A key topic in discussion across Honiton is to do with the public toilets in town, and therefore I'm calling the minutes on section 405 in this agenda item. Public toilets are a bit of a hot topic in Honiton at the moment. Obviously, over the last 10 years, 2 blocks of public toilets have actually closed to the public. And currently, one of the blocks of toilets that are still in place in the town are closed due to COVID restrictions. If you compare this to other towns in the district, such as Budleigh Salterton, a town with 5,500 people, they have 3 blocks of toilets currently open. It seems very weird that a tourist hotspot in East Devon, such as Honiton, with a large market charter and a large high street, is being let down with toilet provisions in the area, especially since it constitutes nearly 2.5 times the population of a town like Budleigh Salterton. Therefore, I wanted to ask the leader a very quick question, and that is: will Cabinet make sure that they scrutinise the figures and look at a more pragmatic approach to in which toilets are kept open across the district, especially in regards to Honiton as a big town? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Miller, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Chair. Just in addition to Councillor Bonetta's point, I had a very quick question with regard to the consultation. And please forgive me, Chair, this would have been something I would have brought up in the Cabinet meeting in question, but due to the technical difficulties, it was a hybrid meeting. I was only given a minute to speak, and I haven't had an answer to the written questions I've asked. And it's on the subject of the consultation. Is this consultation going to just be with towns and parishes, or is it intended to be a full public consultation? I would certainly favour the latter. And I guess the question is directed either at the leader to the leader or the portfolio holder, Councillor Young. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Tom Wright looking to speak. Tom, would you like to speak next, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm sort of really responding to our newly elected councillor for Honiton, and I welcome him to this council. It's all right looking at the number of residences and the number of people who live in an area, but I would question whether the number of visitors to Honiton this last weekend compared to the number of visitors to Budley this last weekend, when our beaches were crammed and there was a greater need for public toilets. I don't want the public toilet issue to become parochial. I want it to become a district-wide issue and not at all parochial. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wright. And I know portfolio holder Councillor Young has indicated to speak as well. If you could, Jeff, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will be talking to the councillor from Honiton, in fact, all councillors from Honiton, to see if we can do anything. In other towns, we have managed to get the town councils to contribute to help us open more toilets, because we still have to be COVID secure, which means more cleaning, more costs. But I would like to see all toilets open, but the government are insisting that we carry on with being COVID secure, which means we have to clean them 4 times a day rather than 2. And because of the holiday period, if we only do 2, I think we're going to be criticised for having very bad toilets by the end of the day. So we will be reviewing. We in fact are reviewing the toilets that are open constantly, and if we can get more funding and more staff, because that's the other problem we've got at the moment. We're very short of staff, and no, hopefully we can get more toilets open in the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. I've got Councillor Mike Allen next. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to agree with Jake Bernetta right from the start on regard of the toilets in Honiton. It's actually shameful that some toilets in King Street were shut when they were perfectly usable, and it takes no real extra effort to move between those and the ones in Lace Walk. It's just unacceptable that a town which is the second largest in the East Devon area has only one set of public toilets. It's just not acceptable. And I have been arguing that particular issue for the last 18 months, ever since we started shutting toilets unnecessarily. The absolute essential is that older people who come down the A303 and come into Honiton and park in the wrong car park find themselves in serious problems. Especially just recently, we had somebody who was disabled, and Councillor Key was telling me about the difficulty this particular gent had. He was desperate. We had toilets, the toilets were shut. It's not acceptable, and I ask that these toilets, both sets, should be opened without any delay. And I'd also ask Jake Bernetta, since he's part of Honiton Town Council, to involve the entire Town Council in pressing for these to be properly opened. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Arnott, could I give you a little choice on the basis that you're moving these minutes and there are obviously questions being raised along the plan? What I'd like to suggest is that you exercise the right to speak at the end of the contributions from the others, and that you can then pick up any points raised rather than potentially have to come back. So Councillor Paul Jarvis. Paul.
I'm going to, no matter how much I love Budley, and we are inundated this year with more tourists than we ever had before, and I certainly don't want to see our toilets closed or any lack of maintenance being done or cleaning. but I'm lucky that I work for an organisation that is based in all of East Devon, Mid Devon and Exeter. I can see from our own, I work for hospice care. We have shops in each and every one of those places. And I have seen a tremendous drop in Honiton on the high street. Anything we can do to assist our major towns, which are suffering. And I'm not joking when I can tell you that I see spreadsheets every week for 5 years. And Honiton itself, our two shop, we have a shop and we have a warehouse. And the drop in footfall has been tremendous. So anything we can do to assist Honiton, and that means toilets. I mean, giving people the convenience that they still want to come into town. It still has banks for now. It still has things, but it's lost a lot of its major high street names in due to COVID. So anything we can do to support Honiton, along with keeping up what we are doing in the regions that we are obviously inundated with tourists, is a benefit to all of us.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Councillor David Key. David.
Yes. If I can just follow up on what Councillor Allen said. I parked in the car park next to just above the toilets in King's Road and got out. And this lady came across to me and she said, "Why are these toilets shut?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Why?" She said, "My husband," she said, "has a problem and he is absolutely desperate." So I said to him, I said, "Right, come here to me." So I opened my two doors, which then covered him against the wall of the toilet, and he was able to relieve himself. Otherwise, he would have been in a desperate situation. Those toilets in King's Street rather, are far easier. They are individual toilets. They are not like the ones in Lace Walk, where they are communal and everybody can go in. All those 5 at King Street are all individual ones. And I think it's a disgrace. And I have written, in actual fact, had emails with the officer with regard to these. And he said, the ones down where the main car park is, are closer to the toilet, closer to the shops. I said, that's rubbish, because I actually paced them out and there is absolutely no difference in it. And the ones at King Street are far more COVID conscious than those down there. So I think it is desperate that we actually do something. And it's the older people that have these problems. We've got to consider these people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Key. Just before you speak, Councillor Arnott, as the last speaker on this subject, the actual moved minute was a capital budget set aside of £3.15 million for 22-23, and also use of transformation reserve to support enabling costs for any transfers. So there is funding there. But the comments have been more in terms of its specific use. So perhaps Councillor Arnott could answer the questions that he can in reasonable short order, but then could he then move his minutes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I think the only question I heard actually came from Councillor Bonetta, which was when we're presented with the results of the further consultation and the further review by the officers, will we drill down hard into it to make sure we understand the detail and making the right decisions? And the answer to that, Chair, is an absolute yes, as I hope all members would expect from me. And that's probably the best I can say at the moment, other than to have some sympathy with what Councillor Rice has said. I think probably Budley is perceived on a kind of competitive basis with Honiton as more of the tourist venue at the moment, but I have ambitions for Honiton. I'm sure that will be overcome. I think Honiton's real need is for shoppers, and as Councillor Bonetta has said, it has a chartered market there as well. So we'll think about this very hard. Councillor Young has been sweating this issue hugely with Mr. Ennis, our officer, who's mainly across this, and Mr. Hancock as well. So we'll look at this very closely. Thank you. Oh, and I suppose I better move the minutes, haven't I? I'm sorry, Chair. I'm so excited, but I can't remember which ones we're on. We're on the minutes of the 12th of May 2021, minute numbers 401 to 413, and I'd like to move those, please, Chair.
On mute, Ian.
Yeah. Rookie error. There you go. Voting as usual, please. Green tick in favour, red tick against, and raised hand to abstain, please.
Okay, Chair, I can see 30. Oh, it's still moving. 32 in favour, 3 against, and 4 abstaining.
Thank you very much. I can confirm these minutes are recommended for approval. The next is again the leaders' minutes of Cabinet held on the 9th of June, and I believe we've got a called minute on this one as well.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand that as well. Chair, with your permission, this is minute numbers 1 to 18. As I understand it, Councillor Loudon, the portfolio holder, stands ready to assist with any questions.
Okay, well, the minute was called by Councillor Parr, so could Councillor Parr please speak?
Thank you. Yes, this relates to the statement by Councillor Loudon on developing member-staff relationships. And this statement was tacked on to the item on the new council plan update. It wasn't an item in its own right on the agenda. So no members were aware that this was coming up. Why was this so? Why wasn't it an item in its own right? So we could all have seen it was on the agenda, because people who weren't watching wouldn't have been alerted that this very important statement was going to be made. And could the portfolio holder explain why the chief executive was not asked to respond to his statement? Thank you.
Councillor Loudon, would you like to answer this, or Councillor Arnott as chair?
I'm very happy to have a first stab, Chair, if that helps, given that that it was my item at Cabinet. I'm very happy to try and help.
Well, it's always nice to get the first stab, John, isn't it? So over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Helen, for the question. And as always, your interest in this matter, it's greatly appreciated. I can't answer for why it's come up in the minutes in this way, because I don't draft the minutes, as you'll be aware. My recollection was that on the evening, the chair, which was the leader, allowed me to make a statement, and I believe it was made as a separate item at the end, or penultimately in the meeting from memory. I made the statement in good faith because I felt it was covering an area that particularly your group, Helen, has taken a great deal of interest in. So I thought it would be useful to give you as much information at the earliest opportunity, because I had been in discussions with various officers, and so I wanted to, if you like, bring it forward and give you as much notice as possible. You'll be aware that at the next Cabinet, which we've just had, it then did morph into a report from the Chief Executive. Now, as to why the Chief Executive wasn't asked to comment upon my statement at the meeting, I don't know. It's not my place to do that, I don't think. I'd have been very happy if the Chief Executive wanted to say something. Very happy indeed, because since back at the end of February, I've been working, I would like to think, closely with the Chief Executive on all matters relating to member-on-member conduct and member-on-staff conduct. So I hope that helps you understand how it came about, Helen.
Councillor Parr, thank you.
I do beg your pardon, Councillor Parr.
It's somewhat helpful, but perhaps the leader could explain why he didn't invite the Chief Executive to respond, and why he allowed this item just to be tacked on at a last minute when councillors were not alerted that it was going to be made.
Thank you, Councillor Park. Before we go to Councillor Arnott, could I've noticed Councillor Sarah Jackson's indicated. Sarah, would you like to speak now, please?
Thank you. Can I just check? Are we talking about the cabinet of the 14th of July? Is that the one we're referring to?
We're on the 9th of June cabinet at the moment.
Thank you very much.
Which is minute 18. Is that the one you're interested in, or is that not the case?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Arnott, would you like to answer?
Only really, Chair, to say that I think Councillor Loudon has covered it, and I think Councillor Parr called the 14th of July as well. I'm perfectly sure that in chairing that meeting, if the CEO had wanted to make a comment, he would have asked to do so. So it wasn't a matter of him not being allowed to respond. No response was expected at that time. It was very, very clear and honest, and I think a aggressive statement from Councillor Loudon, but which I think was inviting a similar response from other groups in the council, perhaps. And I think it spoke for itself, and it then led to action a month later.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Could you move your minutes now, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to offer the minutes of the 9th of June 2021, minutes 1 to 18 for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Voting as normal, please, colleagues. Green tick for yes, red cross for no, raised hands to abstain. Could we vote now, please?
Okay, Chair, I have, still moving. I have 28 for, 1 against, and 8 abstain. 8 abstentions.
Thank you very much. I can confirm these minutes are then recommended for approval. And next one is again Cabinet on the 14th of July. Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I would like to present to Council the minutes for the 14th of July 2021, minute numbers 19 to 43. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a call minute again here, Henry, which was again, I think, Councillor Parr.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. So it's minute 40.
Councillor Parr.
Thank you. Yes, this minute refers again to the developing member and staff relationships and the resolution of the Cabinet, and in particular, resolution number 2, which says that the Standards Working Group, we should note that they was reviewing the Council's members' code of conduct and request the group give specific consideration to the content of the report when conducting their review. Where can I see the minutes of this group? Has it met to review the Council's members' code of conduct? And can we have a progress report on their work, please?
Mr. Gordon-Lennox, Henry, you put your hand up. Apologies for jumping in front of you, Councillor Mulligan. We'll come to you next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether perhaps Councillor Jackson wants to answer, but then there is a difficulty with this group in that there isn't a formally appointed chair yet, so there isn't anybody who really owns it, which is why I put my hand up to hopefully help. So it's a group of 10. I've got the membership. I have tried to convene one meeting. Unfortunately, there wasn't sufficient attendance to make it quorate, and I am having trouble fixing a date at the moment. So it hasn't actually met formally. We have met informally once. but obviously we need to meet formally to appoint a chair and then go from there. So it is work in progress. It's not being left. But given the summer holidays and periods of absence, I think it was important that all members are available to attend. And we're just having a bit of trouble coordinating that. But it is work in progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Henry. And of course, this is good committee. This is going to report to the Standards Committee, isn't it? Thank you. Councillor Moulding.
Chair, I really just wanted to declare my interest in item number 27 on these minutes, which refers to an LED monitoring forum and an update on Cloakham Lawns, where I am president. I also noticed on the same set of minutes that earlier on, I declared my interest as a trustee of Axminster Skate Park, as well as being Cloakham Lawns president, as matters relating to the Millway Rise former football pitches were being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's noted. Councillor Loudon.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if I may, it might be helpful to Councillor Parr if I try and perhaps expand upon this minute slightly. I'll just beg your indulgence. So Councillor Parr was asking why the Chief Executive hadn't been invited to comment on the statement previously. If you recall, Councillor Parr, the report that the Chief Executive presented to Cabinet, which led to the resolution, did reference the statements I'd made. It also in there talked about the fact that I had given the Chief Executive some ideas that I had for moving matters forward, and what the Chief Executive's report said. And I quote just briefly, it says in section 4, further discussion between the Chair of Council, portfolio holder for Council and Corporate Coordination, myself that is, the Chief Executive and Monitoring Officer has taken place, during which the following points were raised, and I won't go into those. And then he goes on to talk about the point that has just been made about the Standards Committee. So I think I would hope that Councillor Parr would concur with me that there has been broad interest through the officer corps. There's been broad interest and involvement through the chair and the leader of the council, and that we are as one wanting to make some changes across the whole board. And as the leader said earlier on, I made a statement, I stand by it, my group stand by it, and I very much invite all other groups to pick up the cudgels that I put down, and I would hope that you would all take the same steps that we have taken. And I very much look forward to getting updates from groups as we move forward. I think that would be a real positive move. So anyway, thank you to Councillor Parr for raising this.
Councillor Loudon, that doesn't answer my point. My point was, when you made your original statement, when you apologised on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, you made your statement, but the chairman of the meeting did not invite the Chief Executive, who was there waiting and attending and knowing that your statement was being made, didn't invite him if he wished to comment, which I think was discourteous.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parr. I think briefly, if you could, Councillor Loudon, then I'll ask Councillor Arnott to move his minutes, and so we can move forward.
Thank you,
Have
Chair.
you something brief, Councillor Loudon?
Yes, I will be very brief, and I hear what you say, Councillor Parr. Absolutely no discourtesy has been extended to the Chief Executive, and very much I have worked with him, as I say, for the last 4 or 5 months on this matter. And you home in on one small part of a 9-paragraph statement that I actually made. It's that long, you know, and you home in, as always, just on one bit. You need to get the bigger picture.
Okay, Councillor Arnott, could you move your minutes, please?
I will, Chair. Only that sometimes I'm reminded of that Japanese soldier who came out of the jungle in about 1982, still fighting the Second World War. So it's my pleasure to present the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on 14th of July 2021, and move minute numbers 19 to 43.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Members, colleagues again, green ticks for yes, red tomatoes for no, and raised hands for abstention, please.
Okay, Chair, it looks like 32 green tomatoes, 1 red tomato and 6 abstentions.
Thank you very much. I can confirm those are recommended for approval. Next on the hymn sheet, Councillor Brown. Minutes of Scrutiny Committee on the 8th of April, please. Could you move those?
Yeah, I present the minutes of the Scrutiny Committee held on 8th of April 2021, minutes 140 to 147. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no call minutes on that meeting. Could we then vote straight away? Again, green ticks, red crosses, or yellow hands, please.
Okay, Chair, I have 33 green ticks and 5 abstentions.
Thank you very much. I can confirm again that those minutes are recommended for approval. Next, Councillor Chamberlain, minutes of the Housing Review Board, please.
Good evening, Chair. April meeting was not me.
Oh, I was cunningly put off here because the hymn sheet says you are. Anybody like to take over
now,
bringing the minutes?
Been April, sorry.
Do we know who was going to own up for being the HRB chair at that point, please? Councillor Armstrong, waving in the corner.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair,
I'm not actually a member of the HRB, but I was at the meeting, so I don't know whether you want me to present the minutes or not, or whether you actually want a member of the HRB.
I'd bit of guidance, Henry. What do we do when nobody owns up to being chair?
It was Councillor McCullum who was chairing that day.
Yeah, but it's not.
Of course, that would explain it. What would be the process now then, Henry?
Well, I think if we don't, the vice chair is nominated by the committee. I don't think the vice chair is a member of the authority. I think it's somebody else.
No, he's not. He's a tenant.
So
No.
I think in that case, if Councillor Chamberlain, who is listed as being present, is willing to present them, then I think that's the only way you can do it.
No, fair enough. Well, on that basis, I'm happy to accept that. Councillor Chamberlain, you don't get away that easy.
Thank you very much. I need to find what page number it is though, because it's not in front of me. I was not prepared for that, so give me a moment.
I'm happy to read it out of that. I'm happy to read it out.
Yes,
Councillor
please.
Chamberlain.
If you could, Henry, please, yes.
It's the Housing Review Board meeting held on the 29th of April 2021, minute numbers 102 to 121.
After all.
As Henry said, thank you very much.
Brilliantly done, Councillor Chamberlain. Very impressive, impeccable. Could we again vote on those minutes, please? Green ticks for yes, red crosses for no, and abstentions with a tasteful yellow hand, please.
Okay, Chair, I've got 25 in favour, 1 against and 9 abstention.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Councillor Chamberlain. I can confirm these are recommended for approval.
Thank you very much, Chair.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Councillor Ledger, Dan Ledger, minutes please from strategic planning.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to present the minutes of the 27th of April for the strategic planning minutes 124 to 134. Thank you very much.
And would you like to do the June ones at the same time?
I can do, so I'll present the minutes
for
of the 22nd of June, minutes 1 to 13. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll take those together. There are no called minutes. All those in favour, please. And against, and any abstentions?
Okay, Chair, I have 29, for, 1 again, okay, 8 abstentions.
Thank you very much. I can confirm that both sets of minutes there are recommended for approval. Next, I've got Councillor Wragg, minutes of the Planning Committee. Would you like to move your minutes, please?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. Minutes of the Planning Committee, 5th of May, 255 to 264, 9th of June, 1st to the number 1 to 9, 14th of June, 10 to 17, 15th of July. Could I call Councillor Chamberlain back centre stage, please? As she very kindly chaired that meeting. I was there for the very beginning, but not anymore. So I'll hand it over to Councillor Chamberlain. I think Henry would agree that.
Well, I think Councillor Chamberlain could, if she could move her, the last one at the same time, then we'll take them all and vote in one block. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Henry, you just might need to help me with the numbers because I'm on a tiny iPad and I can't see all the pages.
18 to 27, Sarah.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move the minutes 18 to 27.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Chamberlain. That gives us the full block of Planning Committee meetings. Could we vote on them together, please? Green ticks for yes, red crosses for no, and again, yellow hands for abstentions. Thank you.
Okay, Chair, I've got 29 for and 4 abstentions.
Thank you very much. Again, we can confirm that those minutes are recommended for approval. Next ones I've got are the minutes of the Licensing and Enforcement Subcommittee. Councillor Joe Wibley, please.
Hi, yeah, I'd like to present the minutes of the Licensing and Enforcement Subcommittees held on the 21st of April, pages 139 to 145, the 19th of May, pages 146 to 151, 16th of June, pages 152 to 154, and the 7th of July, pages 155 to 159.
Thank you very much. Again, obviously no call minutes there. Could we vote on those, please, in the normal fashion?
Okay, Chair, I've got 27, 28 votes for and 6 abstaining.
Thank you very much. Again, I can confirm these are recommended for approval. And the headline act is Councillor Wibley again on the minutes of the Licensing and Enforcement Committee, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So yeah, I'd like to present the minutes of the Licensing and Enforcement Committee held on the 21st of July. Minute numbers 1 to 9, pages 160 to 164. Thank you very much. It's been a lovely audience.
Don't go for an encore, Joe. Can I invite members, please, to vote as normal, please, for those minutes?
Okay, Chair, I think I've got 28 for and 5 abstention.
Thank you very much. Again, I can confirm it's recommended for approval. That leads us on now to agenda item 10, which covers changing to governance arrangements. And we've got a report from the monitoring officer on that one, please. Henry, could you please address your report?
Thank you, Chair. Straightforward, members. Following the by-elections in Honiton and Fennerton, I have redone the political balance and it's represented for your approval tonight. The balance is set out in paragraph 3 along with the allocations of committee seats, and appendix 1 shows how those seats are split across the various committees. So I seek your approval for that. In terms of the membership of the committee, the changes are identified in paragraph 5. This is reflecting the shifts that have happened as a consequence of rerunning the balance. There's one change to notify you of, and that is in 5B. It concludes that Councillor Parr will replace Councillor Desarum on the Personnel Committee and the substitute member switching, and just say that's not going to happen. So Councillor Parr will remain the substitute member, and Councillor Desaram will continue to sit as the main member on personnel. But otherwise, the changes are as detailed in paragraph 5, and it's also recommended that the chair of the personnel committee shall be the chair of council now, and that the Conservatives have changed their the chair of the scrutiny committee to be Councillor Tom Wright. So members, I ask for your approval of all of those, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move that from the chair, which obviously doesn't require seconding. Can I now invite members to vote again in favour or against in the usual fashion? Thank you.
Okay, Chair. I've got 36 votes for and 2 abstaining.
Thank you very much. Again, I can confirm that that's recommended for approval. Thank you. Now we're on to motions. Agenda item 11, I've got motion the role of the chair of council. This, as you'll recall, was a motion deferred from the council meeting in February. Really, just to move straight across to the proposer, please, Councillor Mike Allen.
Thank you, Chair. This is a motion which implies no criticism whatever of the current chair of council, or in fact, neither do I want to criticise anybody else. But the surprising thing was, when I read through the Constitution about the role of the chair of council, there was no statement about bias. And so therefore, the need seemed to be to emphasise that the chair of council should exercise neutrality. And since they're to be the conscience of the council and to uphold and promote the purposes of the Constitution, it's very relevant that they should be an exemplar of the standards of conduct and ethics consistent with the council's code of conduct, particularly when they're going to be chairing the standards committee and evaluating codes of conduct breaches. So when I went through that, came up with this particular proposal, and the one thing that I was asked to do by Henry was to consider not trying to hobble the chair. And so I want to add an amendment that the chair shall exercise a casting vote if needed, according to his or her choice, because obviously there are circumstances where it's a dead heat and the chair ought to have the casting vote. That's the way we do things. We've really simply needing to clarify the Constitution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Sorry, you jumped around on my screen then. I've got Councillor Skinner seconded. Do you want to speak now or hold on, Councillor Skinner?
Is that an either?
Yes, it is. It's one hit, and it's either now or later in the debate if you prefer.
Well, what I will do is I will speak a little bit later in the debate then. Thank you.
No problem. And so I've made a note that the second is still to speak. I've got Councillor Loudon. Councillor John Loudon, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on the amendment actually that that Councillor Allen's put forward. So he's proposing that the chair would have a casting vote. At present, the chair doesn't have a casting vote, and therefore, if a motion doesn't find favour, then it wouldn't pass. It would fall, and that does seem to me to be the most appropriate way to deal with it, surely, because otherwise you are inviting a degree of bias, as I think that was the word that Councillor Allen used. It would invite perhaps a degree of less than neutrality, as his motion seems to wish. So it does seem to me that you're trying to have your cake and eat it a bit here, Councillor Allen. So I think the two things are at odds with each other. So I wouldn't be in favour of your amendment, I'm afraid.
Right. Well, on the basis it's an amendment, I guess, that's being put now, then we actually have to speak on the amendment first, even though it's actually an amendment to the original motion. Is that not right, Henry?
No, so the proposer can move an amendment to, the proposer can put forward an amendment to their motion, which normally the meeting would signify without discussion.
Okay, fair enough. No, I accept that. I understand that. I just didn't want to get us across. So we're not counting this as an amendment, but we're counting it as an amended motion as originally put. Thank you very much. Councillor Hayward.
Can I come back at some point though? Because I want to
please
deal
do.
with yeah.
Councillor Eldon, Chair, has covered the points I wish to raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. I just wanted to again touch on very similar points. Obviously, the chair themselves do currently have the deciding vote when a motion is deadlocked, and therefore acting neutral seems to act countercurrent to that. And I think it's just a simple amendment, if I may, to replace the word neutrality with objectivity, and I think it achieves the same outcome, keeps the chair acting within the constitution when if they do have to exercise their vote, and I think that will still keep the same bit there. So it's just an amendment that I can propose to change that word. Please.
Thank you very much for that, and sorry about the ringing. Obviously, we're now dealing with an amendment, so we actually have to put the amendment to bed before we can actually return to the original motion. So could anybody who wants to speak on the amendment please show?
You need a seconder.
Sorry, my apologies. A seconder for the amendment.
I'd like to second that, please, Chair.
Councillor Miller. Sorry, that's my error. My apologies for that one, Council. Who wants to? Maybe.
Can I just interject?
Would you like to speak now, Henry?
Yeah, if I may.
Please do.
Because I think we've got a slight oddity. So can I just be clear that in law, as is reflected in the Constitution, the chair gets a casting vote. I mean, you can't take that away. So that is there already. So in terms of the amendment, as things would stand, if you were to replace neutrality with objectivity, as things stand, Councillor Allen's additional wording still sits. So if you are looking to continue with the amendment for objectivity, I would suggest that also includes deletion of the newly added wording, just to deal with that point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your guidance. Councillor Hawkins, could you comment on that as soon as you move the original amendment?
Yeah, more than happy with that. That's what I was intending. Badly worded, but yes.
Ooh, not like you, Sam. Councillor Miller, you seconded the amendment.
Yeah, I'm also happy. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to speak on that or not?
Yeah, I would actually. I'd also like to point out that the chair doesn't just have the casting vote; they can vote also in the original when the original vote is taken. And in my time as a councillor in the last 2 years, I've seen in recorded votes a chair of council use that vote, 2 chairs of council, and I think that's why the word neutrality is inappropriate, because it doesn't correspond with the legal framework under which councils operate and the Local Government Act. In contrast, in the House of Commons, the Speaker does not get an initial vote, but gets a casting vote, and it's very unlikely that the Speaker would ever vote because there are so many MPs. So I think the term neutrality is not the right word. That's why I support Councillor Hawkins's amendment, and I hope we can go to a vote on this issue soon, because I think the rest of Councillor Allen's wording is very highly impressive, and I think it adds a worthy addition to this part of the Constitution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Miller. And just to remind members again, I'm taking comments on the amendment specifically now, please, not the main motion. Councillor Benningham.
No, Chair, I'm going to take my hand down. I want to speak on the motion, not the amendment.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Councillor Tom Wright.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's all right dealing with things that don't have any immediate impact, but I speak as having been a chairman of Budleigh Town Council, not a great council like East Devon District Council. And there were 1 or 2 occasions where decisions had to be made. And I think there might be those times when there is an imperative for a decision to be made, that the chairman does have a casting vote. He can vote as an ordinary member, and then he can vote as exercise his role as chairman to make the deciding decision. And I've done that both as a councillor and as a manager and operational commander of many incidents. And I think there are times, they might be rare, but we must not hog-tie the chairman, that if there is a decision that needs to be made now, he is able to make it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gazzard, again on the amendment, please.
No, my point's been made, Chair. I thought I took my hand down. Do apologise.
No worries, not a problem. Councillor Sarah Jackson, please, on the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, so again, just for clarification, as it stands in the Constitution, chairs have both a vote and a casting vote if it's required. So from my perspective, there's no need for that additional one that was proposed by Councillor Allen, but therefore I am therefore in support, of the amendment. And I think the change in wording from neutrality to objectivity is appropriate. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Key, David.
Yes, I can just confirm in actual fact that while I was chairman of planning, I had 4 instances in actual fact. I'd voted and then it was a level vote. Well, I had to vote the same way as I voted in the first place. You can't go against it. So yes, I mean, you have the 2 votes, as Councillor Jackson said.
Thank you very much, Councillor Key. Councillor Hayward, again on the amendment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, can I ask our monitoring officer to confirm that it's the legal duty of a chair to exercise that casting vote and to enlighten members as to what happens if the chairman refuses to deliver that casting vote in legal terms?
Henry, are you happy to answer?
No, is the answer. I'd have to look at that. I know there is a responsibility to exercise, but the consequences for failure, I'm not sure what that would be off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up.
I've noted Mark Williams. Mark has indicated. Can you add to that, please?
There's no actual duty to exercise a casting vote. There's a duty to consider exercising a casting vote, but it is in the discretion of the chair whether they wish to exercise a casting vote. The convention in most organisations is that if a matter is tied, the chair would tend to exercise the casting vote in support of existing policy and not in support of a change of policy. But that is a matter ultimately for the chair to decide. That's certainly my understanding of the matter.
No, thank you very much, Mark. That's very helpful. Councillor Allen, could you please now, you have a right of reply on the amendment, please. So could you speak specifically to the amendment at this time?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the amendment is. Is it just the issue of the word neutrality, or is it that they wish to extract the amendment that I put forward about the chair exercising a casting vote?
Okay. I think I can answer. I can help you with that one. As we've seen, the original change to your motion you put in actually was a change to the original motion. So what was put was still the original motion. What we've seen since is an amendment proposal from Councillor Hawkins, seconded by Councillor Miller, which removes what you had added as an extra item, which I think was number 6. Forgive me, Henry will, I'm sure, be able to tell us the exact wording of it. But then in addition, changes the word from shall exercise neutrality and be to shall exercise objectivity and be. So effectively, I've got that right, haven't I, Henry? That is the amendment, and that's what we will be voting on when you've had your opportunity to sum up on the amendment, not the motion itself.
Yeah.
Henry,
Sorry,
Henry, let Councillor Allen, please.
No, I was just asking if Henry could please clarify before I sum up.
Yeah, so Councillor Allen, you propose adding the wording, the chair shall exercise a casting vote if needing according to his or her choice. So the amendment deletes that and it also changes the word neutrality to objectivity.
Yeah, okay. Let me address the 2 points concerned here. Neutrality is crystal clear. It means that the chair has to not take sides. Objectivity simply means that the chair will remain clear with the objectives. That's not the same as being neutral. So I think that neutrality actually is what we are talking about. We want the chair to be neutral at the point of the debate so that he or she can manage that debate effectively. And it was Henry's point about the casting vote, because he recognised that it's a legal necessity. And so that's why I included it. So I can't agree the amendment that takes out a legally necessary aspect of the proposal. So I hope that people will turn down the amendment, because what we're really all about is trying to make sure that the chair is crystal clear on his or her role as a neutral person, making sure that the council's conduct is exemplary, meets the code of conduct, works through the principles of the Constitution. And in the event of a tied vote, it is a legal necessity that they should have the right to exercise a vote. And I can't take that away. That's a legal necessity. So thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to sum up.
No problem. And I'm afraid Councillor Wright and Councillor Jackson, I won't be able to take you now, because part of the process in the Constitution on an amendment is that the proposer of the motion gets the opportunity to sum up. So on the basis we've already done that, can we please put the amendment, which is to remove, perhaps Henry, could you go through the actual amendment so we've got it 100% right, and then I'll move it.
Yes, so it will, paragraph 5 would now read under the amendment, shall exercise objectivity and be an exemplar of the highest standards of code of conduct and ethics consistent with the council's code of conduct, and by promoting and maintaining high standards of conduct by councillors, co-opted members and council officers to serve the best interests of the community.
Thank you. And then the additional paragraph from the added to the original motion will be removed.
Well, it just stops. Yeah, I've just left it.
Thank you very much. So all those in favour of the amendment, please indicate with a green tick. All those against with a red cross. And any abstentions, please, with a raised hand.
Wait for the votes to settle down a little bit. In favour,
Tell me it doesn't need a
against,
casting
and
vote.
3 abstentions.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
You there, Sue?
It's sorry, the
I think Sue's having internet problems.
28 in favour.
Sorry, I've missed that, Sue. I can't hear you.
Chair, it's 28 in favour, 14 against, 3 abstentions. 28, 14 and 3.
Thank you very much. So on that basis that the amendment is accepted, and then the substantive motion now effectively is as printed in the agenda papers, with the removal of word neutrality and replacement with word objectivity. I'm now taking any further comments on the main motion itself, please. Councillor Wright, have you spoken on this yet or not?
Not on the main motion, only on the.
Oh, okay, please continue.
Only on the, because if in the real world, if there is a casting vote to be made and the chairman has to remain neutral, he can't cast a vote either way, which absolutely paralyzes the whole process of decision making. So on that, basis, I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I've only got Councillor Ingham left, and then if there's Councillor Miller, Councillor Ingham. I think Councillor Miller's spoken already, haven't you?
On the amendment, yeah. This is now back to the main motion, Chair.
I know. Yeah, I was just checking. Councillor Ingham.
Thank you, Chair. I just think that this notice of motion is absolutely superb. It's been a long time coming because we want the most important position on this council, the chair, to have absolute integrity. And by sending this very clear message, I think that the public will approve, Chair. And I look forward to all future chairs, like yourself, acting in a manner that is befitting of the position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Councillor Miller, briefly, please.
Yeah, it is brief. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to correct Councillor Allen when his definition of objective, which is actually freedom from bias. That is the dictionary definition of objective. So I think this fulfills his objective in this motion. And can I finally just say that we've had 3 chairs in this council term, and I've enjoyed serving under all 3. I think all of them have been the epitome of objectivity, and 2 of them, including you, have been serving during extremely difficult times, having to chair meetings from home. So I just wanted to pay tribute to you, Chair, and also predecessor, Councillor Gardner and Councillor Hughes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, all the hands have gone down. Does that mean we're ready for my Councillor Allen to sum up on his main motion?
Chair, my apologies. I keep putting my hand up and it keeps being put down.
It's not me, I promise.
My apologies, mate.
Councillor Hayward again, if you could briefly, and then if with everybody's approval, I'll move to Councillor Allen to sum up on his motion.
Thank you, Chair. It's just really, I mean, I'm reading this and I'm unsure, actually uneasy with clause 3, because we still have this language of chairmen included in clause 3. I can't understand why that hasn't been. I mean, the motion is the role of the chair of council, and yet clause 3 to ensure that at the council meeting, councillors who are not on the cabinet, who are not chairs of committees, are able to hold the cabinet and committee chairs to account. We've had this discussion at council before, and it's been included in here again.
Okay, sorry.
So I propose an amendment that those 2 references to chairmen, and it's still being used in this meeting up to a couple of minutes ago by members of this council, that we remove the reference to chairmen, as this council has discussed several times and agreed, and replace it with chair or chairs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Well, on the basis we haven't gone to summing up yet, that counts, I guess, as another amendment. So could that make, am I right on that, Councillor Henry, or not?
I mean, to be fair, I think it's just been missed in the check, because actually in the rest of the section it uses chair, not chairman. So I think that one's been missed. So yeah,
we accept that as a non-issue and do it anyway.
Yeah, I'll do. Chair, on a point of order, I fully accept that chair is the correct terminology, not chairman, chair lady, chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Yeah, that's good. Could you move to summing up on your? I'm not taking any more speakers, if you don't mind, Councillor Arnott, as I indicated before, because I've moved to summing up now, so it's really too late. Sorry, Councillor Jackson as well. Councillor Allen, could you sum up on your motion, please? This is the main motion now, as amended.
I totally accept the amendments. Thank you, Councillor Miller, for correcting me in terms of what objectivity really is. Freedom from bias is what we want, and I think we're all agreed. However, I do recommend that Henry has a good look at this to make sure that there is no restriction on the chair exercising due use of his or her vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, on that basis, I think we're ready to take this motion to a vote. It's again a green tick for yes, red cross for no, and a yellow hand for abstention, please.
Okay. Okay, Chair, I've got 43 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Well, I think there you have it, Councillor Allen, a wholehearted endorsement of your sentiment, and I'm pleased to see that myself as the chair from everybody across our council. Thank you very much for that one. Councillor Skinner, sorry, I messed you out completely then, didn't I? Sorry about that. Can you accept my apologies?
You gave me the opportunity to speak later. I put my hand up several times, but now the moment has gone, one might say. So
Well,
let's
you know
just
what they
crack
say,
on.
Councillor Skinner, when the moment's gone, move on.
Crack
To
on.
the next motion, please. What I've got next is, sorry, let me just check I'm in the right place. Yes, I am. Agenda item 12, the motion is on nationally described space standards. And Councillor Peter Faithful is the proposer. Could you speak to this, please, Peter?
Thank you, Chair. My reason for putting forward this motion was because we do not have a policy in place for room sizes. Often where applicants are planning to convert employment space to residential units, they try to shoehorn in more units than the building can contain. Those buildings have never been designed for residential use. An example is the conversion of roof spaces, where long sloping roofs can give a generous floor area, but due to the very low ceiling height, much of the floor area is unusable. I'm not sure how many times across the district such planning applications have been allowed through because we do not have a policy in place to reject them on size. Within my own ward, I know of 3 applications that, in my view, should have been rejected due to being under the nationally recognised size. With younger residents getting taller by the year, I feel it is our duty to build residential units large enough for the next generation to live in. If we want to support our rugby players and our basketball players, the least we can offer is rooms large enough for them to live in. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Faithful. I've got Councillor Vicky Johns down to second this. Would you like to make your speech now, Councillor Johns, or would you like to run the risk of me forgetting completely and judge to carry it over?
Happy to take the risk, Chair.
Ooh, a brave lady, a brave lady. Councillor Allen.
Well, that's fast. Thank you, Chair. I was expecting a lot more of the supporters to speak first, but I will. This is something that I tried to get into the local plan and was originally resisted by the former, not the present, head of planning, on the basis that it's not enforceable. And I think that it's resulted in some houses in Cranbrook and other places being built to a substandard size, which should never have happened. There are national space standards. Those should be minima. And if we can, in fact, agree justifiably, because we're allowed under the National Planning Policy Framework to do this, if there is any way of very rapidly coming to a minimum standard for East Devon, then I thoroughly recommend that Councillor Ledger puts it on the agenda for Strategic Planning Committee, and we get on with making sure that decent homes are built and that developers do not trim the few inches off just for a bit of extra profit when these homes are going to be there for 50 or more years and they're desperately needed to be the right size. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Ledger, Dan.
Thanks very much, Chair. Completely happy with this motion. It's something that's already been brought into play with the emerging Cranbrook DPD. That's already a policy. The design standards are already a policy that's held within that plan. We were planning on bringing it through with the review of the new local plan. It's doing something that we're already going to do, so more than happy, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ledger. Councillor Ingham. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to thank Peter for bringing this forward. It's a great idea. And if we go back over 100 years ago, you know, when the Addison Act came in and national government had decided to meet the expectations of a new era with modern housing for modern society, it didn't take long before they realised that there's the importance of setting standards for those new houses and new settlements. And they were absolutely right, and it worked really well. And somewhere along the way, about 50 years ago, we made the mistake, or national government made the mistake of enabling us to build houses suiting the wants and the needs of the developer rather than the people who had to live in those dwellings. So I really welcome this, and it's another notice of a motion. I can say about time too. I'm going to support it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ingham. Councillor Wragg. Eileen.
Thank you, Chair. This is something that I called for many years ago, and it was seemingly dismissed. It's something that's been adopted by a number of London boroughs and under the Conservative administrations. So it's long overdue, and I welcome this notice of motion. I shall support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to propose to take two more speakers. Councillor Vicky Johns as second, so I don't forget her. So it's you next, Vicky, and then I'll follow you, please, with Councillor Faithful summing up before the vote taken immediately after that. Councillor Vicky Johns.
I didn't think for one moment you'd forget me, Chair.
I couldn't. I really couldn't.
I'm really pleased that Peter's put this motion forward. And as Councillor Ledger has already stated, it is something that I believe that Councillor Ledger was already looking at, so which is excellent. It's a shame that developers do get away with doing this kind of thing, and hopefully if we get it put in place, then it will nip it in the bud. Well, a bit late for some of them, to be honest with you, but it will make it better for all of our residents, which is obviously what we all want. So I fully support this application, this motion, sorry, and I'm glad that Councillor Faithful put it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johns. Councillor Faithful, would you like to sum up, please, before the vote?
Just to say thank you for all the positive support. Let's just get on with it. Thanks.
Man after my own heart. Let's just get on with it. Vote, please, in the usual fashion. Green ticks for yes, red crosses for no, and a raised hand for an abstention, please.
Okay, Chair, I've got, oh no, it's going up. Sorry, it's 41 in favour.
41 in favour. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, I can now confirm that that motion is recommended for approval. And there we go. We've got one more motion to go. This is now item 13. Item 13, which is the motion on trees. What we did have, I think, was the gentleman, one of the members of the public, who had a piece to read out at this time. So perhaps, Sue, if you could do that before we start.
Okay. Sarah, would you do that, please? Sorry, Chair, my connection's a bit dodgy, so I'll ask Sarah if she can do that for me.
Sarah, if you could step in, that would be absolutely brilliant.
Yes, Chair, certainly.
Thank you very much.
The statement is from Mr. Ed Dolphin, who is a tree warden and treasurer of Sidmouth Arboretum. Sidmouth Arboretum wishes to support the motion calling for the creation of an enhanced tree policy for EDDC. I will not expand on the importance of trees and hedgerows in this brief message, other than to quote from Wirral Borough Council, who have already set up their tree, hedgerow and woodland strategy. Their executive summary corresponds with the preamble to the EDDC motion. in quotes, trees are vital for our environment and for humanity beyond their key role in tackling climate change. Trees, hedgerows and woodlands are an integral part of nature, supporting a wide range of insects, animals, birds and plant life. Having trees, hedges and woodlands in our local environment is essential for the future health of nature and of people. Trees are a cost-effective way to improve the environmental quality of our urban areas, delivering physical, social and economic benefits, as well as mitigating climate change, improving stormwater management, air quality, biodiversity, visual amenity and more. In considering trees and planning for the future, we need a fundamental shift in attitude and perspective to recognise trees as public assets rather than liabilities, end of quote. Sidmouth Arboretum, which includes 3 members of the East Devon Tree Warden Network among its committee, is a community organisation linked to Sidmouth Town Council. We have an excellent working relationship with the EDDC tree officers, but as a small organisation of volunteers, most of our work is associated with point 3 of the motion, promoting community engagement. EDDC is a landowner and planning authority with a statutory function to administer tree protection measures, has the opportunity for much greater influence. At this preliminary stage, we would not want to start offering detailed comments, but having undertaken surveys of the Sid Valley's trees and hedgerows, we can attest to the decline of the arboreal habitats that is already underway in our part of East Devon. The threats will increase significantly in the coming decades with the progress of ash dieback and other pests and diseases, coupled with the likely effects of climate change. We recognise that the task will be challenging, but it coincides with national and international moves on environmental policy, and to adjust the old proverb, the best time to start a tree policy was 20 years ago, the second best time is today. End of the statement.
Thank you very much, Sarah. If we could move on to Councillor Bailey as the proposer of the motion. Jess.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted that we've had 2 public speakers this evening in support of the motion. My ward is West Hill and Aylesbury, and West Hill is a woodland village, and its trees are mentioned throughout the neighbourhood plan. Tree protection and tree planting are key concerns. And over the 8 years, the last 8 years, there has been a lot of felling, literally hundreds of trees. So I would really like to see the district council take a kind of proactive position. But it's not just my village where there are concerns with regards to trees. I know other members of the public share my concerns, and you will recall that in November, a member of the public from Chardstock came to speak to us and came to address us as a district council about trees. And he asked, what more will you do to conserve existing trees, be it on agricultural, public or private owned land? So my motion has prompted a welcome response from the portfolio holder, Councillor Young, and I'm grateful to him for engaging on the issue of trees. Councillor Young has produced a report, and whilst I'm not 100% in agreement with what he says, I think it is a good starting point and there is much common ground. So I think that's a really positive thing. But I would like to just amend my motion slightly I feel it could be improved. So first of all, I want to talk about preemptive felling. Now, I recognise that Councillor Young doesn't at this stage want to include, to bind the council to a policy of proactive making of TPOs. But nevertheless, I do feel that we as a council can and should condemn this practice. So rather than agreeing a robust tree policy which includes proactive making of TPOs, I would like it to read, the council condemns the practice of preemptive tree felling prior to the submission of planning applications. Second, I've been considering how the best way of getting to the position where we've got a tree strategy. And I think I've looked very briefly at the Wirral tree strategy, and I think that's what we should be aiming for. And the question is how there are lots of different aspects of tree strategies, and I think we need to take a broad approach. And the way I look at it is there's lots of expertise out in the district, and we've heard from Sidmouth Arboretum, there's the AONBs, there's lots of expertise. So what I'm thinking is that potentially we could approach this in a similar way that we've approached the poverty. So we've ended up with a poverty strategy where there's been lots and lots of buy-in. We've had external speakers coming to speak to us. We've approached it on a kind of topic by topic basis. So what I would like to propose is that we work to develop that strategy, and part of that will of course be TPOs, and so will community engagement, but I think it is quite a big piece of work that we need to take a kind of overall approach. So what I'd really like to propose is that rather than at this stage getting into the nitty-gritty of specific details, is that I propose that this council agrees that a scoping and indicative report for a tree strategy be urgently brought to the next available overview meeting. So I've slightly amended my proposal. I think it's better as a result of it. And I hope that it can be a collaborative approach with lots of buy-in, and I think that it's something that our residents really want, and I think that our environment will really benefit from it. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Before I go to Councillor Armstrong as the seconder, Henry, are we actually clear what this motion is now? Because Councillor Bailey mentioned changes, and then there was one paragraph read at the end. Is that paragraph to some extent now of the motion?
I've got two, I think it is. This council condemns the practice of preemptive tree felling prior to the submission of planning applications. I think that was one. And then the other was that the council agreed scoping and indicative report for the development of a tree strategy brought to the next available overview meeting. So I think there are effectively it's two elements to the motion now.
Okay, is that correct, Councillor Bailey, please?
That's correct. The preamble stays the same, so the description of the trees, but the actual actions on the part of the council, I propose a declaration about preemptive tree felling, and I propose a scoping and indicative report be brought to the overview committee at the earliest opportunity.
Okay, and Henry has the correct, full, comprehensive wording of that, does he, on those lines? Forgive me, I can't remember every word.
Yeah, if you've got it in front, if you've got the paperwork in front of you, members, I can tell you exactly the start and finish points for these, so you're all clear.
I think that would be helpful, because it's important that we do debate what we know what we're debating.
Yeah. So the first part where it starts, this council recognises, that continues all the way through to the to the colon, which says, in light of the key role of trees, this council, in light of the key role of trees, and it then changes to say, this council condemns the practice of preemptive tree felling prior to the submission of planning applications. The rest of it's then deleted, and then it says this council agrees that a scoping and indicative report for the development of tree strategy be brought back to the next available overview meeting.
Thank you very much, Henry. I'm clear on that now. Councillor Armstrong, would you like to speak now or take the risk of missing out later?
Yes, I'll take the risk, thank you, Chair, as long as I just don't get forgotten by, as you did with Councillor Skinner.
I mean, it's amazing to think how anybody could ever forget Councillor Skinner, but there you go. I managed it, and he has my apologies, and I'll no doubt suffer for it in perpetuity. Right, Councillor Young. Councillor Young. Councillor Young?
Sorry, my microphone was stuck. I've deliberately put a photograph behind me tonight. of a picture of Budley. This iconic view is almost a trademark for East Devon. It shows some trees and the River Otter. And the River Otter and trees are at the top of my agenda, I can assure you of that.
My microphone was stuck.
Hello? Shall I continue? I really want a really good tree policy. It fits in with our carbon neutrality policy, and I've been working on this scheme and other schemes that all dovetail into this. Basically, we want the right tree in the right place for the right reason. However, as Councillor Bailey has pointed out, some residents and some developers have a different idea of our tree officers' opinions. We therefore need to work much harder to educate, inform, promote, and get more people to understand how important trees are. I think Councillor Bailey and I are singing from the same hymn sheet, and hopefully we'll be singing from the same verse shortly. Councillor Bailey kindly sent me her changed proposal this afternoon, and I would support it, except that I've spoken to officers and we've got problems of getting a report ready for the next meeting, which I believe is in October, because we've got to speak to the ANOBs, we've got to speak to Devon County Council, we've got to speak to the National Trust, we've got to speak to the Woodland Trust to be able to get all the ducks in line. So I would suggest that we come to the nearest possible date as soon as possible, but I don't think we can come to that meeting in October. I think it's going to be putting too much strain on our officers who are handling the pandemic problems that are continuing and having loads of other issues that are happening at the moment. So yes, no, we're going in the right direction, and it's not going as fast as a lot of people would like, but it's a massive issue. And now, so if we can make an amendment to the amendment and suggest that we'll bring it as soon as practical, then that would be fine. Thank you.
You're muted, Chair.
Oh dear, sorry, my apologies. It's the buzzing in my noise. I switch my thing off. I say that sounds like a relatively minor. It does sound like an amendment, but a very minor amendment. Is this something we can move through on quickly, whether that's acceptable to the proposer? And if it is, just basically take straight to the vote, please. Councillor Bailey.
I don't think that's probably necessary, because it already talks about the next available overview meeting. So okay, if the information isn't available or isn't ready, then it will go for the meeting when it is. I'm a little bit disappointed, because I'm not sure that for the purposes of scoping that we need to go out to all those people, because I would have thought that an initial scoping exercise could be done by our officers, but I would be interested to hear, I think John Golding, who I've spoken to, may be here today. Maybe he could comment when he thinks that it may be available. But in terms of the amendment, I'm not sure that it's necessary, but Thank you.
Okay, it does seem very minor. I've got a large number of speakers, and I'm quite keen to move along. John, is there a quick yes? It's yes, yay or nay on the timing of moving this forward, because it does sound to be only an instance of timing.
Yes, if I may, Chair, very quickly. The difference for me is the amended proposal is a scoping report. That's far easier piece of work to undertake than what was originally proposed was a comprehensive report on covering all the issues. So scoping report, absolutely fine. We'll get that to, if the next meeting of overview is October, we can achieve that.
Okay, that's lovely. So we'll keep it with your statement, Jess, and then the expectation is the October meeting. Sorry, Councillor Maddie Chapman. Maddie.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, well, I spoke to Councillor Bailey yesterday. I'm fully in support of this. We've had this problem in Exmouth for about 9 years now, and it's a running battle. I would like to put forward an idea. I don't know if Jess has picked up on this. In certain parts of East Devon, we have no man's land, which the developers have left between a development and another development. Now, no one owns up to these lands. We lost 10 trees a few months ago, and county and district and everyone said they didn't know anything about it. I would like to put forward to Jess and anyone else who's looking at the scoping that the tree officers know where these no man lands are of copses and trees. And bearing in mind, it is a lot of work scoping and talking to everyone, it's going to take time. And having spoken to tree officers about this previously, I see no reason why the district council cannot put a TPO based on the ordnance survey map grids on areas that they need to look at, but have not yet got time to go over, which can be protected until the officers have got time to get to them. Because I really don't think we can allow people to go and cut the trees down, especially on, the wildlife, bats feeding flights. It is affecting things and people are just getting away with it. And so I think we need to tighten up in areas we can tighten up now, and we can put TPO policies on land which is no man's land or East Devon land, and make sure that these random choppers and chainsaws don't get in and take them down because they don't want leaves in their garden. Thank you for the rabbit, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Bickley. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. Originally, I elected to support this as I am fully supportive of anything that would give us measures to protect the trees and our natural environment. I think this is so key. It reminded me of a meme that was sent around saying, imagine if trees gave off Wi-Fi signals. We would be planting so many trees and we'd probably save the planet too. Too bad they only produce the oxygen we breathe. This is how important they are. I would suggest that Councillor Young said the report wouldn't perhaps be forthcoming at the next meeting, but this is something that can't be put off now. It really does need to be pulled together very quickly. But I would suggest that we also want the best policy possible. I've got various ideas that I would like to go in it. So when I read Councillor Bailey's motion again after my knee-jerk reaction, I did think it needs to go a bit further. So I welcomed it going to overview. I hope that would allow us to bring in things like carbon sequestration equivalency measures. I know that there's a garden centre that has been very, very forthcoming in producing exactly how much carbon, let's say, a 300-year-old oak tree contains within it. And I would hope that we could suggest that developers need to plant the equivalent of that and also be ordered to care for the trees from whip to maturity. So it's not just a question of just sticking a load of small saplings into the ground and then forgetting about them, because that is just not equivalent. I would also like to see the tree warden scheme widened, and I'd like to work with groups such as Sidmouth Arboretum. I'm learning huge amounts from our groups in Sidmouth, and the Devon Wildlife Trust and the Biodiversity Group have got such knowledge around, and I think pulling everybody together to help out to form the best policy we can possibly get but in the quickest time span possible is just the way we should be going now. I'm fed up of people cutting down trees and then having their bat and bird report done and putting planning through like that. It's insane. There should be a minimum time between the two. So, oh, sorry, my voice is going. I think that's probably everything that I wanted to bring into this, but I think the time to do that would probably be in the overview meeting. So I'll raise these points, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bickley. Councillor Bruce, Alistair, a maiden speech. Welcome.
All right, is that better? Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm fully supportive of this particular motion. As a beekeeper, I've got intimate knowledge of the immense value these trees bring to our fauna, and I've been known to plant a few in my time, some of which are now older than some of our councillors. I also support the halt on preemptive felling with one small caveat, and that is that ash dieback, as many of you know, produces a situation where, in terms of public health safety, it needs to be done very, very quickly. However, we could put in place something which would actually allow some checks and balances to take place, because there have been occasions that I've been aware of where this excuse has been used to get rid of trees which are in an inappropriate place, and the checks and balances were not done. So if we can add something like that in, that would be a great idea. But in general, I support this motion.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Yep, no, I'm still there. Thank you very much. So I'd lost my mute button. Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. I very much agree with the sentiments behind this motion, although I was under the impression a lot of this is being covered as well by the Emerging Council Plan, talking about Greener East Devon, because that went into quite a lot of detail, also covering this subject. Main reason I wanted to speak about this, though, was I agree about the scoping documents. I wondered if Councillor Bailey would agree that that also needs to be accompanied by costings, because wearing my finance portfolio hat, the very last sentence of the motion does give me some concerns, because it's like an open checkbook at the moment without any real substance being given to what the costs are. So talking about we'll use its general fund balance, I wasn't quite sure how to interpret that when councillors are obviously aware that we need to keep a minimum reserve in the general fund balance anyway. And it's also committing us to unknown costs, which may be in future budget years. So would Councillor Bailey be prepared just to add to the scoping documents associated costs, and at this stage remove the very last sentence of the motion?
Can I reply? Is that okay?
I think we've actually lost the chair briefly.
Oh, shall I reply? Thank you very much, Councillor Rowland. Yes, that bit's been deleted, so there's no reference in the motion now to general fund balances or anything. And actually, I would expect a scoping document to anyway include reference to costs and timescales. I think it is important to have costs, because I would also expect that scoping document to maybe contain information relating to any surveys or district-wide tree assessments, and obviously the big cost implications for that. So I don't think at this stage we're committing ourselves to any costs, and that will be flushed out through the scoping document. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Apologies, I didn't realise that last sentence had already been removed from what had been said before.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rowland. Councillor Bailey. Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I fully support this motion and concur with the comments made by Councillor Bickley and Bailey. This is a matter of urgency because every day, wherever we live, we hear the chainsaws going off. And I think the points that Councillor Bickley made about how much carbon is saved in a tree is absolutely imperative. And we need, the council needs to act quickly on this, because the longer we leave it, and I appreciate that we're going to do the scoping, but we're going to lose even more trees by the time the scoping is done. And I think developers forget which came first, the tree or the house. And in my mind, it's always the tree that comes first, and the tree gets penalised when the development is put in place. So I'm fully 100% behind this, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gazzard. Councillor King. Fabian.
Thank you, Chair. In listening to the discussion about this, I was wondering whether members were talking about general policy or across East Devon or trees in the built environment. There's so much reference to developers and to people dodging adverse decisions by cutting trees down before applications are made and so on. You know, the townies occupy a very small part of East Devon. I am surrounded by farmland. My rural community here is an agricultural community, has 2 farms right in the middle of the village. Only last weekend, there was a lot of tree cutting going on in the field behind me to sort out the hedges, which had been running a bit wild because of the margin scheme under the EU farming subsidies. And there's a giant pile of wood and detritus in the middle of the field, which has to be disposed of. I'm coming to the point about husbandry. I am very bothered about a well-intended development of policy within the council, which bypasses the very necessary discipline of husbandry by farmers and landowners alike. And I know we've got farmers amongst our members here, and they will have their views probably more profound than mine, and may disagree. But in the land I have, I know that I've got more than 60 trees, and I have to look after them. When Dutch elm was rampant after the turn of the century, I cut down more than 18 trees, which were really quite large, tall, but I cut them down to just 5 foot. The trees came down, and the root bowl and the trees then sprouted again, and they are now over 35 foot. Yet I had to cut them down. Likewise, there are trees that have got, some of them are just dead for reasons I don't know, and they are in the way of other saplings which need light to get at them, and I cut them down. For the most part, I leave the wood in the hedgerow for the bugs and what have you. Saplings come up all the time by themselves and don't need organized planting. And to a degree, they tend to marshal themselves as to which one's going to succeed or not. That's good. But I just want to, I'll be brief. I just want to get to the point of, please remember that there are responsible people living in East Devon who take care and plan ahead. And if a policy comes out of East Devon District Council, which is so tight that for anyone to lift a chainsaw, they had to get a consultant at vast daily rates to write a report for each tree, then we've got a problem arising. So I understand the fervour that's going on with those who are bothered about trees being cut down in towns. Please think about the rural communities and farmers doing their good work as they have to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Councillor Woodward. Tony.
Thank you, Chair. Just a specific question on the wording on the first paragraph that Councillor Jess Bailey has proposed. And currently it says condemns the practice of preemptive tree felling prior to the submission of a planning application. Perhaps it's for my education. Should it not say for the grant of planning approval? Because can you put in the planning application and then go cutting down a tree? does it give them a green light? I wonder if that would be put as a question. Thank you.
Do you want to answer very briefly, Jess, if you could, please? Councillor Bailey?
If I'm truthful, I couldn't really hear, I'm afraid.
Okay.
No.
Could we put that, Councillor Woodward, could we put that question across by way of in writing to Councillor Bailey subsequent to the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, I'm happy to.
Thank you very much. If
that.
we could do that, Councillor Bailey, then we can pick it up there. Councillor Skinner. Philip, I haven't forgotten you this time.
Oh, thank you very much. I was beginning when I was going to have an opportunity to speak, and there we go. But I shall berate you at another time. This whole issue is starting to wander into, I was going to say, into the long grass. I'm very supportive of what people are trying to do, but I think there's two issues here, and there's one issue which seems to be a sort of an immediate, and I absolutely understand what Councillor Bailey is talking about in and I know in places of West Hill, I know, and what Councillor Chapman is speaking about when you see trees and they're just taken down, which appears for no other good reason that somebody, as somebody suggested, just they don't want to clean up the leaves or whatever it is, and that's sacrilege. It really is. That's a real bad place to be in. So I think there's that issue around protecting trees within the, shall I say, the residential environment. There's that. And as Councillor King spoke just now, there is farmers in this room, and I'm one. And actually, I'm working right at this moment with the stewardship scheme, with the farmland that I have, in working on bits of land, on tree planting, in doing ponds, in doing grassland, in different types of grass seeds, to do all these sorts of things. And the stewardship scheme that's coming forward is quite robust. So I'm involved in all of that through the fact that I'm a farmer, and I've got quite a bit of farmland that I deal with, and I'm doing hedge laying and all these sorts of things. So I've got a very good understanding of trees and where it's going, and I do understand those members in wanting to ensure, when you have developers, and like somebody suggested, they put in the saplings and then they walk away and they die and all that, and there needs to be, I'm quite up for a stringent sort of working policies through that. There should be an ownership of taking these things forward. But where I think that there are two things going on here, one is, as members are saying, there's a big rush to get something on board. And I think what members are talking about is the big rush in stopping people taking down trees, such as next week, next month, whatever it is, there's that. And I think there's also how Councillor Young spoke very well, speaking about the Woodlands Trust and all these other people, and other people like Clinton Devon Estates that have forestries. So when you run obviously a business which is a forestry business, which is talking hundreds of acres of very in-depth, and John Varley from Clinton Devon Estates, if you want somebody who knows about trees, I mean, the man's knowledge of trees is just unbelievable, and the issues that go with it, and what Clinton Devon Estates are trying to do, as one example, along with the others. So I think we need to be careful here and understanding the subject of what it is we're trying to get through here. So I think the two issues is, from my understanding, where Councillor Bailey is coming from, and many other members, is this: people are just taking down trees for no other reason, and what can we do to protect that? And I think that is an emergency. So I do absolutely agree with that. But then the bigger issue, which is where I think Councillor Young was talking about, in emerging it forward and taking it forward, having that scoping report, but talking about how we're actually going to encompass forestry, encompass trees, encompass about where we're going, understanding even the stewardship scheme that's going on within the rural areas. And that is a massive subject that is changing right here and now. And those things in the subsidies that are coming forward from farm subsidies are changing very much to this sort of way of thinking and going forward. And I know from the farming fraternity that I deal with on a daily basis. So there are two big issues here. So trees are very much, and the general landscape is very much around that. But I think, Chair, if you don't mind, I think if we want something to go through and not something to stop, I think the main issue at the minute, I believe, is what Councillor Bailey is talking about, in stopping people taking down trees right away. If I please, Councillor Bailey, I'd like to think you got the opportunity to come in if I've got that wrong. But the bigger issue, I think, what Councillor Young was speaking about, which is what I'm very much would very much engage to be a part of, is that bigger issue about engaging in so many other people and about the tree issue generally. And in other words, I was going to say place shaping, but I suppose it's tree shaping in the way that we're going forward and how important trees are. So the issues that Councillor Chapman had, I think what Councillor Bailey was talking about with some trees at West Hill being taken down and all these things, that issue is immediate. But the big issue, what I'm really keen on, what Councillor Young is talking about, is really understanding and getting a real in-depth look into how we have our tree policy and how we take that forward. So I'm very much in agreement with that. But through you, Chair, I'm just wondering that I don't want one to stymie the other. So as one gets in the way of the other in the motion that's been put forward. So I think if councillors, their main thrust is to try to stop the immediate of people taking things down, and let's deal with that as an issue as one, because we can deal with that through the planning policies and what we can do through planning law and those things. That's one issue. But the much bigger issue is how we are moving forward and taking it forward and understanding the environment and understanding how trees work within that environment. And that's and I think that's a totally different issue. Councillor Bailey's grabbed it all, get that, support that and all that. But I think we need to do it. One is one thing and one is another, and we need to sort of be in that place.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Skinner. What I propose to do now is I've got Councillor Armstrong, who doesn't trust me to remember her as the seconder of the motion, to speak next, then leader Councillor Arnott, and then what I'd like is to ask Councillor Bailey to sum up before we put this motion to a vote. I think we've given it as good a run as we can this evening, and the main important thing from my point of view is it looks like it's going to overview anyway, so the motion is not going to be lost, which is what sometimes tends to happen. Councillor Armstrong. Megan.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for remembering me. That's lovely. I'll always remember that now. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said, so I don't want to say an awful lot, you'll be glad to know. But I know that trees and the concerns about it have been, certainly since I've been a councillor, it's been an ongoing issue for the last 6 years, and that's just my length of time, and I'm sure it's been going on for many, many years previous to that. And it's been raised as an issue at various meetings since then. And in fact, earlier this year in January, a few of us met, Councillor Bailey and I met with the portfolio holders for the environment and with the climate change portfolio holder and one of the assistants, and we had a really good discussion about trees and how we should be trying to protect them. And I thank Councillor Young for the report he sent through, but if I read it all through, and the thrust of it is about, I think, more about what Councillor Skinner has just talked about in his second point, about the ongoing, the longer term issue about the strategy, the policy that we have and so on. But the urgent thing for me is what is happening to trees now. That is important. I'm not saying that's not important at all. They're both equally important, but it's the protection of trees now. The loss of stock is increasing on a daily basis, and whenever I have asked about certain trees being protected and so on, because I was worried that, and it's happened in my ward on a regular basis in Exmouth and in Exmouth itself, there are trees that have been cut down. Most of the time they've been cut down by developers prior to putting in a planning application. And it's just one way of getting round not having to get a tree report written up, which, as we all know, is expensive. You don't blame them for that, but it's still not right, because you're getting rid of trees that may not necessarily need to be got rid of. And whenever I've queried this with officers, I'm just told, well, we can't do anything to protect a tree because it hasn't got a TPO on it, a tree preservation order on it. And that's the stock answer I get all the time. Over the last 6 years, I've had that answer. And it just really gets frustrating. Some beautiful trees, as we all know, I'm sure in all of our areas, all of our wards, we're all aware of beautiful, high quality trees, old trees that have got nothing wrong with them whatsoever. They're not ill, they're not poorly, and I understand that trees that are poorly, as Councillor Bruce has said, with ash dieback, yes, we understand that those trees are poorly and they have to go. But most of the time they're not. They're healthy trees, strong, big, healthy trees, which are just cut down for no reason other than just because they want to, really, for whatever reason. So I just want to emphasise that, and you know, to back up really what Councillor Skinner's just said about both elements of it. It's about the short term, about protecting trees now, and I'm sure all of this will be looked into. I'm really glad that it will be going to, well, I hope that this will be approved and it will go to overview and we can have a really good look at all of the various issues. And I fully support this, and I think I better shut up now because I said I wasn't going to be long. But could I request that we have a recorded vote on this? Is that possible, please?
If you wish, we'd need if that's a proposal for a recorded vote, we'd need a second for that, please. Any seconds for a recorded vote?
If you don't mind, Chair, I think it's quite likely to be unanimous, so I don't see the point.
Oh, okay. Well, if you think so.
I mean, in the absence of a second,
Councillor Skinner.
in the absence of a second, and with Councillor Skinner's confidence, you may feel safe to press
hold
ahead.
You to that, Councillor Skinner.
Well, it was Councillor Skinner that said it, not me. Councillor Arnott, please, is the last speaker. Thank you. Before Councillor Bailey. Councillor Arnott.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bailey and Councillor Armstrong. I think both the proposer and seconder, and I hope they accept this, owe the most enormous debt of gratitude to Councillor Jeff Young, who is far too nice to say this, but I think the reality is that the smart way to have taken this would have been to overview first, and indeed ask the chair of overview to look it through, because it's manifestly a huge piece of work. So clearly the sentiment is right, and I think you'll see from the vote that everybody agrees with it. But if you actually want to implement it, it needs cross-officer, cross-portfolio holder work, and I think ideally, perhaps it would have been useful to give Jeff a little bit more time to have responded to this rather than just slam a motion in. But I think the work he's done in the last 24 hours has been astonishing in order to, in a way, rescue this motion so that it does end up logically where it should be, which is, of course, at overview, where I think I'm certain there'll be a fantastic discussion. I think Councillor Rowland's point involving the finances will get picked up there as well. So I'm only saying this, I'm sorry to sound like the patronising head teacher, but the problem is there are processes, there are ways of doing these things, and I can understand the idea of running the flag up the pole. We want to save trees. Everybody wants to do that. Everybody in all of our wards has had an unscrupulous landowner developer chop something down. Oh, sorry, I did that. They've done that with things with TPOs as well, and I think that came up with, in part of Jeff's, very quickly produced report that sometimes even a TPO doesn't protect. So there's a lot of things to drill down into. I'll be voting for this motion, but I hope it's taken as a sort of an opportunity for consideration about where the best place to kick this debate off is, or any debate in future, when it's likely to have support across the council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Bailey, could you please sum up, please, before we go to a vote?
Well, I think I'm just going to lower my hands. There's been some excellent contributions. It's really interesting actually to hear other people's views and other people's experiences, because as a ward member you never really know whether what you're experiencing is the same as other people. And obviously the issue with trees is really quite concerned about trees, really quite widespread. There's obviously a lot of enthusiasm. I take on board Councillor King's point, but I would certainly expect any emerging strategy to deal with the issue of husbandry. I mean, I'm certainly not suggesting, of course, trees need to be managed and maintained, and we're not going to be kind of frozen in time, so nothing is allowed to be done to anything. But I think it's having a balanced approach. And a balance to those trees that do have high amenity value. But I think that's maybe a discussion for the overview and the emerging strategy. And I think I'm heartened by people's comments. It shows how much people care about trees. And I think that we will produce a really good strategy. And I think Councillor Young is right that we will get the best strategy. So I hope that everybody supports this, and I keep my fingers crossed that the scoping will come to the October overview. And yes, I hope everybody votes for it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. Well, if we could go to the vote, please, on this one. I think we're pretty clear now. Henry went through the exact wording that we're voting on. Is everybody clear on that? Comfortable to move forward?
Chair, may I? Because somebody has actually asked me, and I've just given them the wrong wording. So it might help if I say it again so that everybody's clear.
We were doing so well.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Over to you, Henry.
So it reads, this council recognises the immense contribution that trees make to our district, shaping the landscape, providing a vital habitat for wildlife, sequestering carbon to help combat climate change, and playing an essential role in the ecosystem by absorbing rainwater and preventing erosion. Trees are also vital to our communities, enhancing well-being, connecting people with the natural environment, providing shade and peace, cooling the streets, marking the seasons, and giving our communities a sense of place. In light of the key role of trees, this council condemns the practice of preemptive tree felling prior to the submission of planning applications, and this council agrees that there be a scoping and indicative report for the development of a tree strategy be brought to the next available overview meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So everybody's clear now, please. Again, a final round tonight. All those in favour, please, with your green circles, green ticks. Against, with your red squares, and abstentions, please, with the tasteful yellow hand. If we could vote now, please.
Okay, Chair, we have still voting going on. It looks like 38 votes in favour, none against or abstaining.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that Megan can
Told
work
you.
out. Well, there you go.
Told you.
Councillor Skinner was right. So,
Which I'd had money on it.
well, you've got to be right sometimes, Philip.
Well done, Phil. Thank you, Phil.
Anyway, that brings the meeting to a close this evening. I hope it's been valuable to everybody, and I look forward to seeing a much fuller programme of council meetings now. Now we've got the alternative way of coming together. So to thank everybody, including members of the public, for their attendance. Wish you all a safe trip home, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. Good night.